We're live. Good afternoon. Welcome to the February 6th meeting of the City of Glens Falls Planning Board. We have a few items on our agenda this evening. The first item on our agenda is the review and potential approval of the minutes from the January 2nd, 2024 meeting. I will start with Nina. Do you have any comments on that?
I do not.
Keith, anything?
No,
Bridget?
No comment. No comment.
I had none either. I would make a motion that the planning board hereby accepts the meeting minutes from 2 January 2024. Can I get a vote?
Second.
Or second? I'm sorry, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Nobody said no. Exactly. Our first item under old business is, we're going to do these together, site plan and architectural review. Site plan 23-0018, pursuant to City Code Chapter 220-18C16, Hoffman Development Corporation, applicant representing the owner, Steve's Double B Incorporated, owner of tax map number 309.11-5-42, commonly known as 194 Broad Street, is seeking site plan and architectural review for the property at 194 Broad Street. Mr. Blum.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Is that all live? You're hearing it well enough?
It's on.
It's on, okay. All right, thanks. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Frank Colombo with CT Mail Associates. Also present tonight, Ron Sloan from Hoffman Development Corporation and Hoffman Car Wash, and also Elena Moran from VHB, who did the traffic analysis for us. What we're hoping to express to you tonight is that we have advanced the plans much to answer many of the questions that you previously had about our project. We did just provide some additional information. We received Jeremy, the city engineer's comments on Friday. This was work that we had already been in the process of completing, and expected that would be items that might be handled under a conditional approval to address all of the city engineer's comments. But the main body of the comments that he had were for the engineer's report on the water and sewer and the stormwater analysis. And so we have, what you have in the stormwater is everything that would normally go in the SWIP, with the exception of all the HydroCAD models. We didn't know that you'd want to be going through those at this time. But we wanted to give you the evidence that we have, we really have advanced this project along. And we think that we have the materials that Jeremy will find are the normal engineering practice models. The big items that we want to talk about first, though, are, I'll start with the building, and I hope that you can all see this and that you have the smaller version in your packets that we had sent to Philip when we asked to be on the agenda again for this. What you'll see is that we have added more of the brick, stone and brick presentation. Finney Architects does most of the work for Hoffman's at this point. You realize we've gone from their standard building, we upgraded it a little bit, but still got the comments that they want, you prefer to see more brick. Well, we have added more brick, and you can see how we've done that with a mix of some stone with the brick above, and I think that I hope that that's the look that you were going for. If there are any questions or thoughts on that, certainly we can continue, but we do think we have a good looking building. We think that Hoffman sites sort of speak for themselves in terms of the care and the nature of how just clean and good looking that they are. They're organized well, and the operation is efficient. With that, we recognize that it has been clear a discussion. We knew that we were going to be getting to this point about discussing traffic. When we first came and saw you, we had to wait until the holiday season ended because we didn't want to do the counts during that period. But Alana can give you a nutshell version of what you've already received. And if you have questions from reviewing that, she can answer those as well. So I'd ask Alana to come up next.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Alana Moran with VHB, and we did complete the traffic evaluation for the proposed Hoffman car wash. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the study process and the findings, and then can answer any questions that you all may have. So the study area included 2 intersections, as well as the site driveway itself. So the intersection of Main Street and Broad Street at Southwestern and Thomas Street, that traffic signal controlled intersection, and then the intersection with Luzerne Road as it comes into Broad Street, so that one way away from the intersection. So those are the 2 that we looked at, as well as counting the Steve's Place driveway to find out what traffic is there right now, understanding that there's limited hours at that location. So we counted those during the weekday PM peak hour and the Saturday midday peak hour. So because of the hospital, the presence of the hospital and the shifting that goes on there, we counted from an extended peak during the weekday PM. So we went from 3 to 6. Usually we'll go from 4 to 6, but that hospital influence we wanted to make sure we captured. And then the Saturday midday, we did the typical 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. just to capture all that data. We did find that during the weekday PM peak hour, the hospital is definitely influential because the peak occurred from 3 to 4, whereas normally you're going to be 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 4:30 to 5:30, so you're just usually going to be a little bit later. So the peak hour that we looked at was that 3 to 4 during the afternoon peak period, and then I want to say 11:30 to 12:30 during the Saturday midday. So those established our existing traffic volumes in the study area, and we contacted both the city of Glens Falls and the town of Queensbury to find out about any other projects that might influence traffic in the study area. There weren't any in either location that we needed to include because the project is proposed to be open and operational in 2024. So there hadn't been anything going on in those time frames. So what we did was look at our existing volumes, and then we did our build traffic volumes for the comparison. So typically what we look at is the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual to identify what a proposed project is going to generate. And we did that in this case for a single wash tunnel. One of the things about car washes is that they can vary quite a bit, and the data, when the data can be better with site-specific information, the manual suggests that we use site-specific information. So we have data from a Hoffman site in Oneonta that is one of their most prolific locations, so it's definitely one of their higher generating car wash facilities, and that's what we use to analyze both kind of an average condition, which typically happens over the summer, and then we analyze a peak condition, which is more of a winter condition that might happen that beautiful sunny day after it's all been nasty and our cars are covered with salt. So that might happen 3 to 5 times a year. So we looked at both of those things. And from a level of service perspective, we look at that kind of the same way that you do a grade report. A is excellent, F is considered failing, although in this instance, when you're working with traffic and transportation, having a D or a C is okay. It's not like, I might get annoyed if my daughter came home with a D, but like in this instance, it's not a bad thing. So the levels of service at the traffic signal controlled intersection under existing conditions, its overall level of service, B, and then the Steve's Place, the site access is also operating at level of service B. So when we add in the site traffic, just that kind of typical average condition, we're also at level of service B at the traffic signal controlled intersection. And then the site driveway approach, because it's going to be generating more than, of course, Steve's Place does, we're estimating that the site will generate 79 trips during the morning peak, 79 exiting during the PM peak, and 79 entering also. So with those trips added into the network, those 79 trips going from the site onto Broad Street will operate at about level of service C during the PM peak hour. It's similar conditions during the Saturday peak hour, although it's a slightly different level of service C during the Saturday build condition, but it's about 21 seconds as opposed to 19 during the existing condition. Similarly, going from B to C on the site access approach. So the last piece we looked at was when it is that worst case peak condition that 3 to 5 times that may occur during the year, we're adding an additional 150 trips to the site during the weekday PM peak hour and an additional 140 trips during the Saturday peak hour. So a pretty hefty increase in traffic for that peak condition. And what we're finding is that the traffic signal controlled intersection will still sit at about level of service C, 20 to 22 seconds of delay depending upon the peak hour. And then the site access approach, as we would expect, is going to experience a little bit more delay, 20 to 25 seconds of delay during that peak condition during both the Saturday and the weekday PM peak hours. Generally speaking, people will notice that there is a new use at that site and that it's a heavier user than Steve's place, but we're finding that the roadways and the study area intersections can handle the proposed project. Any questions?
Are you taking account what would have normally been there at that restaurant during normal day of operation, as far as adding or subtracting some of that, some of those numbers?
Yeah, so when we did the counts, there wasn't a lot of activity. So I want to say during the Saturday peak, there might have been about 16 to 20 trips. And during the PM peak, because it's closed at that time of day, there were only like 2. We did pull out those 16 to 20 trips from the network just to make sure that we were only evaluating site traffic.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board regarding the traffic study?
I have a question. I guess just trying to understand level of service C. There was a line in the report that says 1 or more queued vehicles are not able to depart as a result of insufficient capacity. So does that mean, and it was sort of kind of the definition of level C?
Okay.
So it sounds like that means vehicles that can't get through the intersection with the light change. Is that what that means?
That is, so it can mean that. It can mean that if it's a traffic signal controlled intersection, that maybe you're the vehicle that got to the light just as it was turning green, but you're at the very end of the queue. So by the time you get to the front of the queue, that, oh man, I got the yellow and red and I'm stuck. Generally for level of service C, that's more unusual. Like you can usually continue through. Level of service C for a traffic signal is up to 55 seconds. No, up to 35 seconds of average delay. So we're talking about being probably more like 20 to 25-ish on average.
Okay. So I guess I was just trying to understand, so during the peak times, like worst case scenario, we're still at level C at
Yes.
the intersection, and then you said that there might be a site approach.
Yeah, also
delay
at about C,
20-ish.
20 to 25, yes.
So what does that mean? Does that mean people trying to cut into the entrance?
So those
to
are the people
site?
who are leaving. So if I'm stopped and I'm on the site waiting to exit, that's the delay that gets counted.
Okay. So I guess.
We have her here, let's ask the question
That's right,
now.
yes. So I guess I'm curious, did you specifically look at how making left turns out of the site might impact the traffic flow?
So that's part of what is taken into account in the analysis itself. One of the benefits of that particular location is there's the two-way left turn lane there, so you have the opportunity as a driver to make a two-stage left turn. So you take the left turn out, you
Out into the middle?
into that turn, yes, into the center median, and then continue along as flow is available. So that's one of the benefits of that particular, excuse me, of that particular roadway cross section. So yes, the analysis takes into account those entering and exiting.
Okay, because I was right. I read it.
Yeah,
But
yes,
I don't
you did.
think I understood it all, but it just, so for example, though, it looked like, and I don't know if this was peak time or not, but 20 cars making a left turn, I don't know if that was per hour or whatever.
Right.
Right, and so just simply asking the question, could that potentially mean that there's a backup on the site, which could translate to a backup on Broad Street for people getting into the car wash during the peak times.
Right, so, and that's one of the reasons that we look at that biggest scenario, but Hoffman's is really good about making sure that they have a ton of storage on site. So I want to say that they've got enough space for 30-ish vehicles to queue on site before impacting the driveway at all. And because of the way that they actually funnel the drivers through their site and into the tunnel, it's a nice, steady, smooth way of keeping everybody moving. So I would not anticipate seeing vehicles queuing on Broad Street because they're waiting to get into the site. There's quite a
You can't
bit.
make left turns.
Right. Yes.
Right turns are easier.
Yes, the right turn is definitely easier, and in fact, I think that this is a relatively conservative analysis because we're estimating that 60% of the site is going to come out and turn left instead of coming out of the site and turning right, so it's a higher percentage. But folks will have the opportunity if it starts to get, if it's getting backed up and they don't want to wait to turn left, you can turn right out of the site and then turn left onto Luzerne and then just circle back to the traffic signals over at Western.
Anybody else with any traffic questions?
I have one. What I'm trying to look through for these readings is it, letter grades aside, is it gonna make, at peak times, is it gonna make the existing traffic better or worse?
Well, anytime we're adding traffic, we're
Yeah.
not gonna make it better.
Right.
I would say what's the important part is that it's going to be noticeable. Like
Right.
people will see that there's a site there,
Right.
but it's not based upon the seeker evaluation and the traffic evaluation. It's not going to cause a seeker impact of a degradation in level of service.
Another thing too, and again, I'm new to the board, so it might be just not knowing, but does it ever get to a point that is that corridor continues to grow and more businesses come and it might increase the traffic? Does it ever get to a point that maybe the sequencing of the lights have to be adjusted
Oh, for sure.
based upon the flow, or if they have to be, action oriented or something
I
like
think
that?
that the DOT regularly checks
Okay,
the sequencing of the lanes. I know, on Quaker Road, they regularly check the sequencing, and I believe Broad Street does.
Right.
Main Street, Broad Street, I know that they look at that, because they do get out of phase, because
They
some of
do.
them are generated by the electromagnetic stuff.
Exactly.
And that triggers the lights, like the ones at, not Newton Street, but Richardson Street, the one that's a little farther up, that's a.
Yeah, exactly. And you all had a project come through, it might have been about 10 years ago now, where all brand new traffic signals going down Broad Street right into downtown. So you do have better equipment than many places do. So you have the opportunity to update those timings and have it come back into phase.
one thing that kind of stuck in my mind, and it was from the last meeting, that actually Hoffman's is a business that's very sensitive to traffic, because during peak traffic times, it hurts their business. Because if you're tied up in a traffic, I always thought that if I was tied up in a traffic jam, I'd duck into the car wash. But then I had to realize that if I was tied up in traffic, I can't get to the car wash to get it. So, like I say, it seemed like the last time I had made a note saying that if in those peak bumper to bumper type of times, it might affect the business negatively. So, like I say, that's why I appreciate the fact it looked like it was a pretty detailed analysis, and that if traffic was too much of a concern, it would be a negative effect on Hoffman's.
They definitely want the site to function,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Right.
One thing I did not mention that I know was in your packet, we did do a lighting analysis, lighting plan, and showed that there was very little, like 0.1 possibly in some places where it was over the property line, but at the property line, we were basically at 0. And so we see no impact from that, and I know that that was something that was very important to the board. And then we did do some more, we provided an updated landscaping plan as well. So again, our goal, we know, actually, I'll stop here because I know that you wanted to open this up to the public. And then if there's questions that come up there that the board wants me to respond to, I'll do that after.
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
On the lighting. Only because before my last job, I actually ran a commercial lighting division
Okay.
for a work group. I think what you're referring to is the light spillage maybe onto the adjoining properties,
Right.
which can be addressed by certain lighting and lenses and things like that. One thing about lighting that I think came up from a conversation that I had from some of the neighbors, residential neighbors to the back, is the possibility when it's, 5:30 at night on a winter night and it's pitch dark out, would be headlights. That, somebody's turning off of Broad, the headlights are shining now towards the back of the property. I know there's kind of a buffer there now with trees, and I think at one point you guys had mentioned that if you needed adjustments to that as far as additional shrubs or, you're not talking about lights that are gonna be 30 feet in the air, you're talking about
17 foot mountain height.
17 foot,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and we have said all along, if sometimes when you are doing the construction, we do think that there's a lot of, some
Right.
trees back there, but you get into construction and you realize it's thinner than you kind of envisioned as you, first looked at it. And Hoffman's has always been the good neighbor.
Right.
They have put up fences where fences are needed to, screen and block those headlights. They are very sensitive to not wanting to have that impact on the neighbors. And sometimes it happens at that point of you get out there and the first,
Right.
Steve's place is going to be removed. The pavement is going to change. And you find exactly where, we thought that tree was right here, or that set of trees was right here, and it's maybe not exactly where we thought once we moved the buildings and stuff.
Right.
So there is absolutely no question that Hoffman's, if there is a condition that arises that we cannot see right now, that they would take care of that.
Right. Okay.
It looks like from looking at the revised stormwater management plan, most of that stormwater management back there is being handled in an infiltration basin.
Yes,
That does not get much beyond where the edge of the blacktop is now.
correct.
And then, so that would allow you to maintain most of that buffer, and then looking at the planting plan, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 additional, what looks like to me to be carnivorous trees that are gonna have their leaves year round.
Yes,
So
yes.
there's been additional screening that's been added, not only to the buffer that exists now, but additional plantings to
Right,
enhance that buffer.
right, and that besides fencing, if you're out there and we're seeing something, the addition of another tree, in that line is just nothing that we shy away from in terms of getting what the best neighbor design can be. And actually, to your point about the lighting, one of the things that we did do that you would understand, so for instance, the light pole that's right here, we wanted the full shining in all directions here because we wanted to have more light at the exit of the tunnel, but that does not cause any greater spread. But then these lights were chosen to not have back spread, but spread more along this way. So we actually did different types of the lighting, even though they're all the same brand, obviously, and the same model,
Right.
but the different types for shielding.
Right.
And same thing down here, we kept that as limited right here, so we weren't getting any spread, not directing anything in that manner.
And you had said previously that these are not 24/7. They're not.
Correct.
They're only, I think the last time Ron had said that it's like 30 minutes after your.
15 to 30 minutes, they're set on timers after closing, for the other reason of not just having people linger there.
Right.
So,
No, absolutely. Good.
all right.
All right, thank you. Don't go too far. So I will open this up to the public. Is there anyone from the public here that wishes to address this project?
I got a few questions.
Okay, please come up.
I live right in the backside, 89 Third Street.
Yep, if you can come up, state your name and your address.
Wade DeMarsh, 89 Third Street, here in Glens Falls. Couple things, storm drain you guys handled for me, I'm good with that. Traffic study, I don't believe everything I heard.
Okay.
I know, I live right there on that street, well, one street over, excuse me. That traffic, I'm not sure the exact times and everything, that traffic, it took me 22 minutes to get through there just today, to get over here. And if I'm making a left-hand turn get my car washed, and the traffic's backing up behind me, there's a crosswalk in that area, and also at the next street by the credit union, there's also a school zone right there. I think we gotta look a little bit broader than just those areas, right at the entrance. Also making a right-hand turn, which would be the easiest, then making a left-hand turn back up Luzerne Road to get it back out to the light. That's a congested area already. So I feel a little more time should be put into the traffic study. Mentioned the crosswalk. How close to the property lines is the building and then the storm drains and the storm management system?
The building itself is actually fairly well centered in the lot. The yellow block that you see there
Yep.
represents where the building is. And then there's roadways and green space between the roadway and the property line in both directions.
So these are parking spots here?
That's where the vacuums are, and that's on the Broad Street side.
Okay, so we're back on this side.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back in the back end. What's the address in?
89 Third.
Third, so you're the first, right up against it there. So,
Right there.
yep, so
Very
all of the stuff is out closer. It looks like from that, the back of the front of their proposed building is about midway through where Steve's is now, about where the kitchen is
Okay.
in Steve's place.
Alright. What are we doing with snow removal? If they push that race straight back, this is snow removal. We get snow, not in the last year or two, but we do get snow. Even with Steve's there, they usually had huge banks back there on a good snowstorm, or during their snow removal. A lot of foot traffic. Have we done anything with the foot traffic that goes through there? Have we looked at that?
Through
As
the
far as
site?
signage?
Through the site?
No, not through the site. On our sidewalks.
Yes.
Our sidewalks, that was in the traffic study?
No, but that's part of their layout. Their entry and exit drive is relatively close to where Steve's is now. When originally Steve's had, it
Oh, yeah,
was just like free for all.
Yep. Yep.
And when they came through and redid Broad Street, they necked that
Necked that down.
quite significantly. So the walk across is a little easier there. And this layout is, and Frank can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're pretty close to where the entry exit is now. You're a little closer back to the light than where you are now. So, yeah, and it's basically the same size as there now.
Okay.
Steve's has an entry and two outs, which
Yep.
is what this one has.
Yep.
One entry, two out.
Okay. The other one is noise for the vacuums.
So, well, I don't want to jump,
No.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to answer questions?
No, we'll go through and address it.
Okay.
They've given us a noise analysis of the vacuums themselves. This vacuum is exactly like the one that's up on Quaker Road right now. And I was up there 2 or 3 days ago and I made note of it. I actually got out, parked in the vacuum space and walked out in front about the distance to Broad Street that this is. And you actually don't hear the vacuum. What you hear is the entry or the exit of the tunnel more than you hear the vacuums. When the door is closed on the tunnel for them coming out, the dryer is blowing on the cars. That actually makes more noise than the vacuums do. And when that's closed, the vacuums are almost and it was full. There were probably 12 cars there all using the vacuum, and they're, correct me if I'm wrong, they're variable speed, so the more people that are using them, the more it ramps up. So if there's nobody using them, they actually ramp down to almost nothing.
Okay. So
And that's-
park over at Applebee's,
Mhm.
totally different noise.
Because you're getting the blowout from the end of the tunnel.
But totally different noise.
Yep.
Just say, totally different noise. So,
Yep.
so is there any, if we have noise like that in the backside, is there any
On the
mitigation?
backside, there shouldn't be any noise.
Okay. I'm hearing there shouldn't.
Everything
We all
is
have
in the
pools
front.
back there, we enjoy our summers outside. So is there any, how are we gonna handle that if it is a problem? How is that?
I'll address that with Frank, and I'll let them respond to it. But again, I don't believe on that end of the tunnel there's
Okay.
any noise. Everything is, that's everything going in, the
I-
dryers are all.
It's like a funnel, it goes up, yep,
Sure. Yeah, understood.
okay.
Questions? Anything else?
Yeah, one other thing.
Hmm?
That's major route into the hospital.
Yes.
With all that traffic there, have we talked to the fire and
Yes.
police and everything else?
Yes. This has been referred to our Board of Public Safety, and they reviewed it at the last meeting.
Okay, because I looked at the meeting minutes, I didn't see anything in there.
Yeah. Oh, they didn't have the last meeting? Okay. All right. We did refer it to them, and we do have a thing that came back, a report that came back on it.
Okay,
So,
so that would be public knowledge decision? Okay,
yeah, it was just done on the 2nd of February.
okay, okay, thank you, appreciate it, thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Sure.
Good evening. My name is Paul Olson. I live at 9 East Boylston Street in Glens Falls. I have just a couple of concerns. I think that, number one, I'm not a NIMBY type. I think that the car wash is something that will benefit the community. But I think we need to make sure that we fully vet what is happening here. A little bit concerned because I know at the last meeting you had at the beginning of January, a gentleman mentioned that he had spoken with the folks at Water and Sewer, but they had a very brief meeting, quote unquote, because they were about to have their holiday party and the pizzas were on the way. I found it very interesting in reading the minutes from the Water and Sewer meeting that took place on that same date, that the Water and Sewer folks said that they'd had a meeting and yet everything was fine. It seems that if you had a truncated meeting, you couldn't have gotten too much into the weeds to find out exactly what was going on. And I believe that, that you are certainly owed, and we as the public are owed a much more consistent and cogent investigation of that.
Certainly.
Other thing that I'd like to mention, you talked about runoff and dealing with that. As we all know, whether we politically believe it or not, we're living in a time when climate is changing and we see 1,000-year storms every couple of years. I can remind everybody that we had a pretty horrendous thunderstorm in August of 2022 that flooded that area directly in front of where this car wash is going to be. And I would hope that we have the proper mitigation on the city's part in the street, but also that there is something that is anticipated on that site that could be over and above anything that they would normally experience. I think we need to be a little more careful. My most important concern is traffic, and it's not so much the congestion, but I think it's the ingress and egress. And I look very simply, if I choose to go to Hannaford's, I can't make a direct turn off of Broad Street to go into Hannaford's. There's no direct access. There's no direct access into the car dealership. I have to go on the side road. Now, it's unrealistic to expect something like that here because of the nature of the property. But I think it is realistic to limit the egress to be a right turn only. I happen to have been shopping at Walgreens earlier in the week and was pulling out, making a right out of the Walgreens parking lot, and noticed just how close that driveway for what is now Steve's is. And it occurred to me that if I'm going to make if I'm at Walgreens and I'm making a right, I'm just looking down to see if there's anything coming, if the traffic light is green. I'm not looking to see what's on my right. If someone is coming out of the car wash to make a left, you've got an instant accident right there. Okay, it's unrealistic to expect that kind of flow, and with the driveways as close as they are, I think it's unrealistic to allow a left-hand turn out of the car wash. Other than that, I think the project is fine. I wish the Hoffman folks well. I know you've got a good reputation, but I remind everybody that they are a corporation. They're here to make money. Once everything is done, once they've gotten their approvals, they're going to look to make that as profitable as they can. All of us are going to continue to live and work here and have to deal with this on a daily basis. So I ask you please to take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to speak? We have anybody on Mr. Williams, you're up. would like to do at this point, Frank, is to have Nina go through her list of, she has some questions from her based on her review of this.
Okay.
So I'd like to have her go through those for the benefit of the board, so that as our architectural consultant to the board, I'll let her ask the questions and we can, gauge the answers that you
Okay.
provide based on that.
I'll do my best. Nina, are these categorized like easy to hard or,
No, they're categorized topic to topic. And so a lot of my questions about the traffic study were answered, and I guess the sort of the remaining question I have, and I also do have a concern about people turning left out of the driveway. I'm just wondering if there's a way to say, let's take a wait and see approach and be willing to perhaps work with the city, and maybe there are hours during the day when traffic is high and you can't make a left turn out of there, for example. Just sort of.
if I can,
let's-
so the first thing.
example.
Right, for example, the first thing is, what we have projected is very accurate, because I know Alana's work. But it also is depicting the heaviest hours, those peak hours. Unique in this case because of, I think, the hospital traffic, and which was to find that it was at the 3 to 4 hour. The projecting the highest volumes as we did, because we know we have those days, and we have the reputation of people seeing those days because people want to get that salt off their cars and everything else. But we also know that the customer habit is when they see that it is problematic, they will go by and more than likely come back at another time. Especially when they're in a place, and you had asked about other stores like this. And I think I mentioned comparatively up at Quaker Road, well, people will get in the line at times on those really busy days because they have a very wide shoulder. People will not be comfortable sitting on Broad Street, and so we do think that they will go by. There is habit forming, type of things. To address your question, this came up with while we were looking at another facility up on Route 9 in Queensbury. The ability to we do have manned staff, staff. I shouldn't say manned. Sorry. And we talk there about when traffic might be getting too heavy, to essentially have some cones out to prevent the left-hand turn, and have one of the employees get up there for directional purposes that way. We don't think we are going to face that situation often, but I think in the working relationship that you're talking about, and the gentleman that mentioned, we will work with fire and police safety throughout to ensure that the operations are being best at any peak period times like that. The reason that one gentleman had mentioned, I don't want to go too far with the one question, but one gentleman had mentioned, well, if we we only made it right only. Well, sometimes that can become problematic in those non-peak times. You want to be able to let people go the direction that they would like to go, rather than only going right and then maybe doing something else, like we had even talked after the first meeting, that they would go up and go down, round through that neighborhood that the other gentleman was living in. We don't want to force situations like that either.
So just sort of anecdotally, to answer the question that you brought up and some of the other people have brought up. When we recently redid the Stewarts on Ridge Street.
Yeah. Okay.
When you come out onto Graves Street, we made them put up signage for right turn only, because it's very close to where people are coming off from Ridge onto Graves, and that's a cut through to Lexington. So we looked at that, and they had it actually signed as right turn only, no left turn, and it's very clearly stated. And I cannot tell you how many times they sit there and watch people pull out and turn left. So when it is very busy, it becomes an unenforceable action. Is what it is. It's because it's an on-site directive. And what I think we'll find is that if it's noted as right turn only, no left turn, in the peak periods where right turn is really the only thing you can do, that's gonna be fine.
Right.
In the hours where it's not, people are gonna make a left-hand turn, regardless of whether we tell them that they can or can't.
And maybe back to the heart of your question in terms of being flexible, being,
Yeah,
able.
because Hoffman likes to be a good neighbor,
Yeah.
so,
One of the things that Hoffman does, probably technically that they need to do this, but I happened to go in right before they were opening up the Coho store, and there they had a group of about, I'm going to say 15 safety, both police and fire, to do a full walkthrough of not only the building, but also the site. To go over before it opened, at that point, when everyone could see what it physically was, and what was happening, and where, where there would exit. And they addressed those issues firsthand with fire and police safety for those purposes. And I would bet they'd ask at the time, what are you gonna do when this is that heavy? But we have the capability to do that. We will use good judgment because, as we've said, and some other members, Hoffman's is doing this here because they want to run a good, efficient business. They don't expect to be here for 5 years. They expect to be here for a long time, and that works when their customers are happy using the site. And Alana had mentioned the number, I think it was 36 that we had come up with that we had room for on the site. So just on the site alone was half of that volume that was in that peak hour. So that's through a whole hour that we've got, actually the 79 and 79 out. So 1/4 of the amount could be held on the site at that time, and that helps with keeping the cars off of the road.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that they have the ability to change the speed at which the vehicles travel through the tunnel.
Yes,
So
yes.
if it starts getting backed up, they can actually speed it up.
Yes.
Make the cars go through quicker,
Yes,
which
and
reduces the number,
or-
the amount of time that you sit.
or slow it down.
Or slow it down.
And actually, we've got to stop at the tunnel and let that clear out. So it's not being pushed out and creating problems that they can solve by just operational changes.
your planting plan looks great.
Thank
I
you.
like it. I was just curious, the evergreens that you're putting along the back of the site, they'll be fairly substantial when they go in, or do you think it'll be a while for them to
I'm pretty sure we had a fairly substantial size. I just have to.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was, a year in or two, just trying to get a sense. Is that the planted size?
So we had 4 to 6 foot height on the white spruce. We had 8 to 10 foot height on the Norway spruce. We had the 2.5 inch caliber on the linden, the deciduous tree, and an 8 to 10 foot clump version of the river birch. So we do put them in at if we went a little higher, that wouldn't.
Yeah, no, just trying to understand.
No, I think that's.
Getting them to transport and getting them to root at much bigger than that is very hard.
Is more difficult,
Yeah.
yes.
They don't
Yeah.
like to
Rather
move
than-
once they're at a size that's that big. I mean, they have to tree spade, pretty much anything that's 8 to 10 foot has to be tree spaded to the site. They can't
And
ball and
we've
grow.
done a number of sites with Hoffman so far, and I can never say that I have been underwhelmed with their landscaping when we're going to do that last site walkover. They want that immediate impact as best as it can be best done.
Yeah, no, I think it's a nice planting plan. Exterior lighting, you talked about that. These are full cutoff fixtures, dark night sky fixtures.
Yes.
Okay. And then I know that the lights go off after hours. Do they all go off, or which lights will stay on?
I'm sorry, so I'm on,
Yep.
we keep a very
Come on.
on Just safety lighting.
I figured
Yeah, that's
that, I was
not just
just
safety.
curious to know which ones.
Yes, the vast majority of the lights go off 30 minutes after we close. In the wintertime, we close at 7 PM, we close at 8 PM in the
Yep.
summer. So we're not open late anyway.
I mean, there's, you know, for example, on the side facing the apartments, I know that there's an exit there and there's a pretty bright light at that door. I'm just curious which lights,
We actually probably haven't determined at this
Okay.
point exactly, but we shut.
but the main
Absolutely, they all. come
parking lot lights, the staff parking in the back, all that stuff
comes down,
goes
yes.
off.
Really, as you said, the security lighting, they have video at the buildings, you know, through the day, but just enough to control that.
Yeah, okay.
As a good gauge for that,
Yes.
just drive by Quaker Road about 10:30 at night. And really about the only thing that's left on are the ones that are right out at the street. There's a couple that are at the doors, but beyond that, there's none.
And to Ethan's point, that's a 24-hour operation.
Right.
So we have
That one is?
self-serve bays.
That's self-serve.
Oh,
Right.
because of the self-serve
So,
base, sure.
Which is,
yeah.
you know, it's probably lit up more than, would be lit up more than this store, which when we close it, we close it.
Well, and there's, I can't think the self-serve car wash that's
Across the
existing,
street.
those lights are on all night long.
But-
But, yeah, but just sort of trying to get a
Right.
sense, I knew you would need to leave some on. And then, again, with the lighting, you've got the monument sign out on the street, are you gonna light that at night? Is there supplemental lighting on that too?
Our preference would be to light it all night, but again, it's not real bright.
No,
Is it internally lit?
Yes, sir.
Signs, since we're talking about signs, I think, are you planning to give us a separate sign package with sizes?
That's typically what we do. The sign installer, they work with a vendor on that. So we give them the site plan and what parameters that the board may place on it or the local code. They come up with the final image for submission.
Do you have at your disposal the zoning information for the size restrictions on signs?
If you guys publish it, we do,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
believe,
online, okay.
right, I believe we looked at that, we typically do. And I think what we selected the sign, one of the standard sign packages that met that.
It looked to me, and I may have been misreading the category that the car wash falls under, that you might need a variance for the size of your monument
Okay, we will
sign
check,
out
we will
there.
check that, and in fact, maybe I'll have them, one of my designers contact you directly.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you the information that I
They'll make an
found.
application to the building and codes department for a sign permit.
Yeah.
And that's where
Right.
the review starts.
Yeah.
And if they determine that it's non-compliant, then it will come back to this board as the board of sign review.
Okay, all right, so, yeah, as far as that goes, just looking for all the complete sign stuff. And then, I think we had a comment last time about the material color on the dumpster enclosure. You switched
So,
that
and
to
we didn't mention
beige, and
that.
that looks great.
We'll carry the shred brick over to the monument sign and the dumpster.
Yeah.
So it'll all match.
Oh,
And then we did say we'd use a neutral,
Yeah.
wherever we had the fencing
On
with the
the
slats, we would
slats.
have
Yeah,
a
that
neutral
makes
tone
sense.
on that.
I think that the brick accents on the upper part look nice, that I'm speaking for myself. I know, there were a lot of opinions about how much brick should be on it, but I think that's a nice presentation of materials. Those are my comments.
Good. All right, thank you. I will start with our board.
Okay?
I'm going to start.
And the gentleman about snow removal.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my questions. When we get to that, I'll let somebody else ask it. I'll start with Mr. Landry.
Most of my questions have been answered. I think the snow removal, in my head, is it's just a matter of, I think in the winter, where you're gonna have, if you're gonna be pushing, big mountains of snow back there, how is that figured into the retention ponds? I know there's some there now. There'll be different ones.
So there's a mixed philosophy on snow and piling near the detention basins. On the one hand, it's an excellent place for it on the edge here before going into there.
Right.
It generally will melt in a slower fashion. You do get intense wash-offs when it gets warm and rainy and stuff. The good thing we have here is that Two things. The soils here, on the county mapping, these are A soils. They drain very well. The designer of this site, working with me on this, also worked on the Walgreens next door. So he had clear knowledge of seeing what the perk tests were done there. He said they almost ran out of the hole before they could, fill it. Very, very good draining into the ground. That's what DEC is looking for with all of these where they can. And Jeremy, in one of his comments, asked that, he saw that we had a connection to the street, but he asked us to do as much of retaining it on site. So we did that. So in some cases, that is the best place to put it. Other people are concerned with, say, the salt contaminants if it's not going into the, So we do have places on the site where we can distribute it, like say this area right here. We have areas here that might drain into here. We don't have to just run it all off into one place. We don't have to run it all off, and to the gentleman's credit, we don't want to just push it back towards the neighbors.
Right.
But there will be some areas where, as they come through to do that maintenance, they will be selecting where some of those will go. I don't think you're going to see a mountain pile anywhere. And then again, this year you wouldn't see it. Next year, who knows what you could have.
Ron, as a company, when it gets to a certain point,
We do. So I was going to say, first of all, we do our own plowing, so we totally control it. We don't rely on an outside company. So we work with Frank and we decide, we have our guys in certain areas, that's where they pile it. But to Mr. Chairman's point, when it gets to a certain point, we have several dump trucks, we have backhoes, we get it off the property and remove it, because it's a problem for us too. So we haven't done that in a little while, a couple of years, but we're prepared to do it. We've certainly done it in the past.
But you guys have a lot less surface area here too. For his question, Steve's, that's all blacktop.
Yes.
So they just plow to the back, and now there's a lot less surface area where you'll be removing snow.
Just looking at this site relative to our others, this will be a walk in the park to plow. It really will be.
Right.
And another thing that Hoffman's does that is unique, they regularly vacuum out their stormwater catch basins. They do not let them get all silted up. They actually came up with, as they do with a lot of things, they invent for their business, but they came up with a specific pickup truck sized vacuum for cleaning the site up, because you will get road sands and everything else there. And in fact, just on another note of I do not doubt that there was a large storm. They happen, and you get the flooding, and we do know that those are happening. But one of the other things that Owen had told me about when he did that was they couldn't actually find some of the catch basins in the street because they had been covered over with sand and filled with sand. They got cleaned out as part of that project. It's one of the best things that can be done for the overall stormwater management, and Hoffman's has been doing that to make sure they clean out all their basins on a regular basis. I think it's twice a year that they do it.
Okay. Tom,
I think other than that, I'm all set.
Thank you.
Art, anything
Jonathan's question, have you met with the water department again? Or no?
Yes. So, we placed some more calls, told them the board really wanted to hear from you. What we got on Friday was a comment letter.
If you'd like, I can read that. I have the comment letter that came from the Water and Sewer Superintendent Bill Norton and the City Engineer Jeremy Schneider. It's a fairly straightforward list. The Water, Sewer, and Engineering Department has reviewed the planning board materials received on 1/29/24 and offer the following comments and recommendations for your consideration. Please indicate the source of base mapping for property lines existing topography shown on the plans. That's for your...
We did survey of
for
it.
your
We
survey.
will make sure that he sees that we have that note on there.
Yep. They're looking for a demolition plan of what's coming off the site once that's available.
Right.
Short environmental assessment form indicates stormwater will flow to the city storm drainage system in the street. The advancement of stormwater management plan should aim to keep the majority of the stormwater runoff on the project site. We did receive an updated stormwater management plan, which that will be provided to them.
They will get the
full-
one that's this thick.
Yeah, as Frank said, they gave us the synopsis that we can review. They'll get the full thing. Provide a stormwater management report when available. Soil testing information related to stormwater management facilities design should be included on the plans and the stormwater management report. Water and sewer report was not provided with this submission, which we do now have. The applicant has stated that the proposed project will result in increased water and sewer demands. It is recommended that the water and sewer report be developed to include a description of the existing utilities, projected water and sewer demands, and the size and location of proposed connections to serve the site and any supporting calculations. So I believe
That's in there,
part
yeah.
of-
Everything that we had said before, that this being about 16,000 gallons per day, everything is now technically in that report, the engineer's report. We know that there will be, and as I had alluded, that if we could get a conditional approval on meeting the city engineer's comments, we have absolute confidence that we can not only show the city engineer that but any other questions he might have, we'll be able to adapt to.
Correct. Through an outside consultant, the city maintains a computer model of the water distribution system. It is recommended that the water model be updated with the forecasted water demands and other pertinent information, hydrant flow testing, existing pressure readings, etc., required to verify that no adverse impacts will result from the proposed project. Costs associated with the updating of the water model would be the responsibility of the applicant. Has that been?
So what we, as I said, we got that on Friday. We are linking up our GIS specialist with the cities so that we can see what information is already available. If we have to do additional hydrant tests, which we might want to do anyway, but I think at the last meeting we were talking about whether or not there was first the condition that there was a couple days where there was some turbidity.
Yeah.
The city thinks they have that, that it's not an issue, but then we absolutely want to verify that there will not be any drawdown from us. So we know, and again, that's what I'm saying. We will meet with the engineering department as we move forward before getting to a building, because they won't allow us to connect to the lines if we don't show that.
Right. And that's part of that report. And again, they had identified during that part of, when we were having the turbid water, and we were getting discoloration and stuff, that there was an unknown user that was putting high demand,
Right.
and they hadn't figured that out yet. Since that has happened, the cement plant has announced that they are closing, and I believe are in their wind down now. They were one of the major users of the city water department.
Right.
So that has since, that's an angle that's dropped off.
Right.
And there are other.
And we realize that even with that, less demand, we realize that there are zones, and
Yep.
that's why you do the hydrant tests at the locations where you do them in proximity. And absolutely, we feel as though we can address those comments to the satisfaction of the city.
It is recommended that the existing curb and sidewalk along Broad Street site frontage be evaluated for condition and accessibility. So that was theirs, and it's signed as William Norton and Jeremy Schneider. So those were the items that came from City Water and Sewer and the City Engineering Department. We had referred this to the Board of Public Safety, and as Emily had said, they did not have a meeting at their last meeting. When is their next one? 14th. So it's coming up in a week or so. So at the next meeting, that should be addressed at the next meeting. They should be looking at getting us something for that as well. Art, good there? Ms. Murray?
No, a lot of the questions have been answered, and the building looks nice. It looks really nice. Yeah, my only concern is like what the neighbor said with the lights in the back, so I just want to make sure that the plantings will be sufficient right from the get-go, so they don't have to wait.
Right. And so the lighting, we know from what we showed where that light spread is supposed to go. But you can get some very unique positioning, and we will address those as you can see it. Something that you just can't tell right now, but we will address anything that is like that straight line of sight out of somebody's, kitchen, and it's like perfect for looking up at it. So you've got it protected for the night sky, but that, halo right there, that is something that we will investigate, but you probably will not know it until it's actually there, because a grouping of trees could block that. The lack of a grouping of trees, could. So we've addressed those at other sites, because, like I said, we want to make sure the neighbors are not impacted.
No.
My biggest issue is water usage, and hearing from the water department. And thinking about traffic and how that will play out. I mean, we're very limited on what we can do. But noise in the summertime for the residents, would you be willing to put a fence up as an extra barrier, like behind trees?
Well, as we said, we will work to do the most there. We are very confident, as Ethan pointed out, and we spoke about this at the last few meetings before we even had that public comment. The sound generation is at the front of the building. It is, we have had other sites where we brought people into the rear, and then we specifically put all the sound generating items at the tunnel exit and that towards the front of the building, and Broad Street will probably be the same decibel level as anything we're adding. So we think we've done things to protect. We have at times, Hoffman's has put, the issue of if somebody's got a radio going in their car, turn your radios off, kind of thing. So we do address problems as they come along. They are very minor problems, if they happen at all. We think we have done on this site, we had the opportunity to keep all that sound really towards the front. But I've just been involved with enough situations, and enough by saying a few. We do not get regular complaint situations where we have to take care of them because they do it right at the onset.
But so you would be, like, if the immediate neighbors were having issues with lights or sound or anything?
If we had to take decibel readings and verify what
the
we've
issues of
got.
fence, that's not an issue.
Yeah.
It really is, if we can put a fence up, if we need.
And even more natural buffers?
We
Absolutely.
can,
Okay.
but I promise you, at that end of the tunnel, our guys don't even talk.
Okay.
So it's really, the kiosk, they don't have sound to them. Most of our customers now don't even roll their windows down. It's all the unlimited. They just drive through and reach their thing and they just keep going. So I don't think it'd be a problem, but if it is, we're happy to take care of it.
That's it.
Mr. Langer?
Mr. Sloan actually answered one question that I had, or I guess the topic. You said you guys are doing your plowing in-house, you're not farming it out or anything, because I'm just a little concerned that this, the large stormwater retainage feature that we have would become a snowball there. As far as stocking up the snow into that structure, into that feature. You wouldn't want to have that. It's going to, do a lot of contamination and so on and so forth.
So again, we look to, CTML to tell us where on the property we should put the snow, and we go by whatever they say.
Okay.
Here, there's several options, and anytime we get in a situation where we have a lot of snow, again, we have our own trucks, we have our own heavy equipment, we just come in and take it out and move it.
Okay.
We don't want it any more than that.
It's easy work if you can get it, as far as filling that in for snow, because they don't.
Right.
But it sounds like you guys are.
Yeah, we generally don't have them do that. I mean,
Yeah.
we steer away from that, and we go right where we're told to go with the snow.
Okay, good.
Good. So, having gone through all that and knowing that we do have some additional stuff, some additional items that were given to us tonight that we need to respond to, I think what I would ask council is, should we do secret?
We can do secret tonight.
Okay.
You have enough to do the secret.
I believe we have enough information. Does everybody feel comfortable going through the seeker form tonight? Okay. I think we have determined that this is an
It's
unlisted
an
action.
unlisted action, the applicant has submitted the part one, so the board needs to review the part two impact assessment. Number one, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No, or small impact. Two, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the land?
No,
or small
I think it's a
impact.
small impact. I don't believe that there's a large impact with this.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
I would say no. We've got, we're in a commercial zone.
Commercial.
This is a commercial entity. We're within the zone.
Yes.
Everybody, anybody disagrees with this, please?
Okay. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area?
No.
No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
We have been giving a traffic study that we have looked through that says no. I would defer to that traffic study. Based on my review of that, I would say that there are some anticipated increases, but based on the traffic report, those increases do not reach a level that would be substantial.
Number 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No, it actually said that they're using recycling. They're recycling, correct me if I'm wrong, 15%?
It's about 30%.
30%.
30%.
Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies?
Again, I want to have the response from the water and sewer department to the report. But based on what I've seen in the report, I would say no.
No or small impact?
No or small.
Public-private wastewater treatment utilities?
Same thing.
Okay, no or small impact. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna?
No.
No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No, they've taken into account with their stormwater management plan all of those items.
Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
Based upon the board's review of part 2, the board could issue a negative declaration.
I would make a motion that Glens Falls City Planning Board hereby accepts lead agency status for the applicant, Hoffman Development Corporation, owner agent of the property located at 194 Broad Street. The board has determined the action to be an unlisted action and has reviewed the short form environmental assessment form, and upon documentation and discussion issues a negative declaration. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That having been said, I believe that we have enough information now on the items that we had gone through before to be able to say that with the review of the stormwater management plan and the water and sewer report that has been given, I would like to get a response from the city engineer, from the water and sewer department, and I'd like to get the response from the Board of Public Safety. I think those are the 3 remaining items that we would have as a board for moving forward.
So as I mentioned earlier, if the board were inclined, what we would ask for is, because those are technical and limited to the engineers, would the board consider a conditioned approval? One of the things, just even for the the landowner. The sooner we can get approval, the sooner we can close and have that taken care of. Not that that's, that's a private transaction, but I think that the items that the engineering department are going to comment on are going to be the straight out engineering, and they're going to, so that a conditioned approval on their review and final sign off, even if we had the condition on showing on a plan the snow removal, showing on a plan temporary or a possible location of fences for the lighting and the noise, we could do that, and then that could be handled through the building permit, planning and engineering, so that we can handle that. That's what I would ask of the board to give
What's
consideration.
the board's flavor? How do we feel about that? Are we comfortable enough that that we can leave the engineering aspects of these things up to our city engineer, planning and zoning department, and our water and sewer board,
And public safety.
and public safety?
Are they gonna make recommendations or just?
It would be, what we would be doing is be giving a conditional approval of the project based on response from those 4 agencies. And as long as those 4 agencies come back through the building department, planning and zoning department with favorable, we would all get copies of all that, obviously. And if there was anything that they came back that needed to be addressed, then we can get back together with these folks and say, okay, based on this, how are we responding to it?
And I don't know fully practice, but I think eventually you sign
Yes.
a set of plans, and so that sign on the final plans would not occur until those
Until
actions
everything's-
happen.
Yep, that's right. Everybody good with that? Very good.
I just would like to,
We will, like I said, we will see it. And as long as we're getting positive feedback from all of those 4 things that we talked about. And again, this is coming back from the city engineering department, the water and sewer department, board of public safety, and final sign off from planning and zoning. That's what we're looking for. Okay? Everybody good with it? All right. So, that having been said, I would make a motion that the City of Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Architectural and Site Plan Review, hereby grants conditional site plan and architectural approval for the project identified as Hoffman Development Corporation, located at 194 Broad Street, as presented at the meeting of 6 February 2024 and 2 January 2024, subject to the following conditions: that a final sign-off report come from the City Water and Sewer Board, or Water and Sewer Department, based on the water and sewer engineering report provided. That final sign-off come from the City Engineering Department and the City Engineer, based on the stormwater narrative and the stormwater report that has been provided, as well as their comments on the traffic study that was provided. That we get a final sign-off or a final review comment from the Board of Public Safety, and that the final plans shall be provided to this board prior to final sign-off. Yes?
Those are all acceptable to us.
Everybody good with that? Can I get a second? Yes? Can I get a roll call vote on this, please?
Commissioner Landry,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Murray, sorry. It's been a while, Murray. Commissioner Folligan.
yes.
Commissioner Landry.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the dialogue back and forth. It has helped us do a better job.
Thank you for helping us out.
And then several, I just never see what
I
you
do. I do.
I knew I was gonna say several.
Moving on to our next item on our agenda, site plan review 24-0001 pursuant to the City Code 220-27-B2, 10 C's LLC, applicant representing the owner of South Street of Dreams LLC, of tax map number 309.28-2-10, commonly known as 72 South Street, seeking sketch plan review and approval to operate a cannabis dispensary. We also have architectural review 24-0001 for the same applicant at the same location, seeking a architectural review of the project as it has been submitted to this board. Is there anyone here representing this application?
They spoke to my department today.
Okay.
We also spoke last week, and due to some outside issues, they've asked to be tabled and would like to come to the next meeting.
Then I would make a motion that we table that application until the meeting of 7 March next time? We're a day later. Fifth day early. Yeah, so table to 5 March 2024. And second? Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? The next item on our agenda for under old business is a board vote for the rehearing and reversal of approved site plan for tax map number 303.17-22-2, commonly known as 207 Maple Street, pursuant to City Code Chapter 220-27-13D. Representing the city of Glens Falls.
Phil Kanzler, Director of Building and Codes. Here, I'll review it. There you go.
Phil, what are you handing out tonight?
Supplemental information from the neighbor next door. Not necessarily have immediate bearing on the vote today, but to get in the hands of the board for review for possibly the actual hearing next month.
You can stop there. You get the Please proceed.
So as we discussed at the last meeting, my office would like to have a formal re-review of the approved site plan at 207 Maple Street for North Country Snow and Ice. As we have discussed in the past, there appears to be a change in use. If you look at the first two photos I supplied, the one from 2018 shows the entire curbs width with blue trucks, which is the company color of North Country Snow and Ice, and you see that the entire yard looks to be used for landscaping and snow and ice removal. Now there is a gap in the historical Google Earth images, but the next one from October of 22 shows a clear barrier between where the salt shed is and where the main building is. In the numerous emails that were provided to us from one of the aggrieved neighbors, and in my own investigations, as well as investigations done by the Glens Falls Police Department, the vehicles between the Jersey barrier and the main building seldom move. We're not sure if it's cars being sold, if it's cars waiting for repair, but it's definitely not the entire company's worth of employees coming and going every day. So with that being said, the entirety of 207 Maple should be used primarily and only for the going-ons of North Country Snow and Ice. There have been rumors that they might be leaving that space to go somewhere else. I've heard it from multiple different people. But until there is a new site plan approved, that's what it's approved for. And there recently was a portable bathroom, a porta-john, if you will, brought onto the site. And the belief is that the workers for North Country Snow and Ice do not have access to the building to use the proper facilities.
Okay. That having been said, I do know that I've driven by the site, and I'm hoping that many of you have as well. It does appear as though it is not being used very much by North Country Snow and Ice Removal anymore. I have spoken with one of the family of the owners, and he has indicated as well that they do have a new facility out on Big Bay Road, out closer to exit 18, that they are looking at utilizing and moving there. They basically have outgrown this site.
Correct.
Is what we've been told, or what I had heard as well. They have had trouble getting their approval to get a salt storage shed on that site, which I can understand, but that doesn't preclude this from being, it does appear, if you drive by the site now, as Philip has said, most of what goes on there now does not appear to be North Country Snow and Ice. It appears to be vehicles that are parked there long-term. Most of them still have snow on them.
Yep.
As we know, we have not had snow in several days.
Yes.
So those cars are not moving. Now, whether those are cars that have been towed here, impounded,
Waiting on parts.
waiting
Who
on
knows?
parts to work, that becomes a change of use of this site. If it is being used primarily by the body shop, that is a change of use for the site. So I'm inclined to move forward with the request of the Code Enforcement Office to post notice to the owner that we would like to re-review the application based on a change of use of the property. So I would make that motion that we let the Code Enforcement Office issue that decree to the owner, and let's get them back here and answer for where they are. We do have a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? I think we're all set.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Sarah.
So you notice them to be here?
Today?
No.
Yes, I will notice them for the March meeting. Yes, I'll try and reach out again. I know the last time that this was happened, the lawyers got involved. I'll try and reach out to them again. Like I said, they've been hesitant to. If not, we use a process server. So that's why we have legal notice that they were told to be here. So if they don't show up, we can proceed.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would encourage all of you to read through these comments.
Yes.
Spend a little time reading through them so you can understand what Philip has been dealing with. And this is just since February.
That's from January 20th to
From January 20th to today. This is from January 20th to today. This is what he's been.
And the only pages loading trucks in that one spot.
Correct. Correct. The next item on our agenda is new business. The common council will consider passing a local law to amend chapter 220-6 of the zoning code to revise the zoning map to change the zoning district boundary from general commercial district GC1 to general commercial district GC2 for two tax parcels, tax map number 309.27-6-1, commonly known as 83 Broad Street, and tax map number 309.35-1-9, commonly known as 85 Broad Street. And good evening.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jacob Cruikshank. I'm a professional engineer at EDP. On behalf of my applicant, I'll be presenting the Greylock Storage Expansion Project. A little bit of background, this project is located at 79, 83, and 85 Broad Street. It's north of Broad Street, directly adjacent to the intersection on Murray Street, right down the road. So there is an existing building, self-storage facility on 79 Broad Street. This zoning for this one property is general commercial 2, which does allow for self-storage facilities. 83 and 85 Broad Street, directly to the west, is a vacant land as of now, and that is zoned general commercial 1. General commercial 1 does not allow for self-storage facilities. Right next door, as you can see here, it's a little pocket of 2 and 1. So our goal is to expand the GC2 2 lots over to allow for future expansion of the existing self-storage facility. So a little bit of background on this. The concept as of now has the existing entrance. There's no new entrance at all. Improvements to the existing site today, repaving, striping, and better circulation. The existing building, they're going to do some work on the exterior. buildings could vary, but they're all self-storage facilities, no AC, no heating, parking, travel services surrounding it. Because they're self-storage facilities, there will be no additional water or sewer. And this project will probably be over an acre, so we'll follow all the requirements for DEC and stormwater management. And we show certain stormwater areas as well. This is pretty good soil, all sand, so I'm assuming infiltration basins. We have a lot more green space. I don't know if you have been to the site, but it's all paved, so we're gonna add some buffer in between the property lines to give it a little more aesthetic value. So this project in general is low impact. It's just an expansion of an existing business. I believe both of these zones allow for restaurants, drive-through facilities. So this is a little bit less of an impact. Very little traffic. The only traffic would be probably during normal business hours. Lighting, very little lighting at all. Dark sky compliance, downward facing lights. I believe that was everything that I need to get out for background. Obviously, we're here to get a positive recommendation to go back to town council, see if we can get the zone changed. So with that being said, my applicant is here as well. If we have any questions that I can't answer, so I'll open it up for questions.
Very good. What I would like to do is start by asking, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this application? I know that Mr. Flagg is here on behalf of the city, so. You're welcome to stay at the podium. Jeff won't let.
I don't want to block his view.
I won't let Jeff. I won't let Jeff.
I won't take my mask off here. I'm fighting a cough of some kind, so he doesn't.
I lost my voice 3 days ago, so.
I just want to make a couple quick observations, and I've not spoken to the owner, so I don't have a particular opinion one way or the other. Obviously, I know at the same time that this is an issue that this body is making a recommendation to the Common Council will end up weighing in on this. I did want to sort of just give you a little bit of background about, where the city has been going and where this may fit into the city's plans. As you probably know, the city has been doing quite a bit of planning over the last 10, probably 12 years. Much of the development and much of the planning for development has been done downtown, right? You're probably all familiar, of course, with the DRI, and a lot of work has been going on. I don't know if you saw in the most recent survey at the county level, they were talking about how the Warren County is doing better than ever, and the primary reason for that was given was Glens Falls, which I thought was a wonderful thing. The last piece in this sort of development puzzle of the downtown area, of course, is South Street. And as you hopefully have seen in the relatively recent past, we're finally getting started on a long-awaited project, like the whole South Street corridor. In anticipation of that, there have been at least 3 different plans, and I've given you copies of those, or little pieces of copies of those, and I'm happy to provide copies of the board. They're all available publicly. It's not like they're secret documents, but sometimes these things get conducted and then tabled and put on a shelf. But we have been sort of pursuing these. One of them goes back to 2013. This is the Downtown Vision and Development Plan. A second one was done, the Arts, Wellness, and Entertainment District. I have a couple other copies if I need them. And then the most recent one was the South Street, Broad Street, BOA, Brownfield Opportunity Area. And what these plans all seem to anticipate, right, is that we're going to have a future in which development being, having developed the South Street corridor, a lot of development, a lot of traffic is going to be directed downtown through Broad Street rather than down through where people typically go now. Is you might go down around Hudson Avenue and go down to the roundabout. Quite frankly, I think for the last several years, certainly, we wanted that to happen because you didn't really want people's first exposure to downtown being South Street. As that changes and we anticipate a lot more of the traffic coming off the Northway being directed down through Broad Street, most of these plans, and they're pretty consistent, have sort of anticipated sort of a different character for Broad Street. And primarily it's been looking at sort of business offices, some medical professional offices, some mixed use. And, you know, this all comes in the past, right up to the present. The city also has a comprehensive plan, right, in which we're going to be looking at zoning. And so, I mean, the primary driver behind the comprehensive plan was to look at how we can sort of holistically look at zoning. And I would assume and hope that there will be input, obviously, from the planning and zoning boards on how that process happens. I think then, because of that, and if you look at these, you know, as much as I have no problem at all with storage, and I have no problem at all with Greylock, and I have no problem at all with their business model, I think you might find, we might find as a city, that this expansion is somewhat inconsistent, at least with the plans that are here, and undefined as far as the plans that we're looking at going forward. Right? I don't know for a fact that this is a bad idea. I'm certainly not going to say that. I know this sounds somewhat antithetical when you have the economic development director talking about sort of a business expansion. I have no problem. I'd love to see them expand. I'm not sure, right, that this expansion of these two parcels that are now basically the only thing they exclude is the kind of thing that they want to do, right, is consistent with the plans that the city have going forward. And so I would ask you to take into consideration, and again, I know you're simply making a recommendation to the council, and they're going to make the ultimate decision about this regardless. But I think it would be worthwhile to sort of take a look at that and to see how this might fit into the city's plans in the past coming forward and the plans going forward is sort of yet to be determined. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public? No. So with this new information that we all just received as well, again, many of the things that are noted here, one of them is from 2013, one of them is from 2020, and one of them is from 2016. So many of these things have been in the fold for quite some time, and I don't know if copies of this were given to you as well.
Not me personally, but
do you have extra copies too? If you have extra copies, if you can give a copy of everything to the applicant, that would be great. If you have an extra set, the city clerk would like one as well.
Was that meant to bring on there? So that's just to, you know what this is? You want that in?
So the city attorneys, our council does have a item that she would like to reach, is going through a few things on in the city zoning code. I'll let you read what you pointed out to me.
Well, the applicant pointed out, are you going to be joining parcels 79, 83, and 85 in one lot?
I don't, is that the intention?
Because I was looking at where there's a section of our code, 220-8, lots in more than one zoning district, where a district boundary line divides a lot in a single or joint ownership at the time such line is adopted. The regulations for the less restricted portion of such lot may extend not more than 30 feet into the more restricted portion, provided the lot has frontage on the street in the less restricted district. So I think there's like if you were to combine all of these lots, I guess we'd have to look at the law and interpret that to see if you even need a zoning.
I'm working on another project where we have zoning line right between the two properties. And even if we did combine them, I think as far as Clifton Park is concerned, the zoning stays as is and does not.
Our code says that you apply the least restrictive, which would be the GC.
So as far as setbacks and whatnot, but the use, I think that's the only difference is self-storage.
So just for the boards, in the GC1 zone, which is two lots that are to the west, to the left on that, the self-storage is not allowed use. In the GC2 zone, which is immediately next door. And if you look at our zoning map, it's, you know, with the different colors, there's GC2, GC1, GC2. So it's really kind of a mishmash of going down that street. I will, Nina, I know you had a couple of observations as well.
And then I have another question to Karen's point. Is it the case that if you address stormwater kind of as an all on one site thing, they need to be the same owner? Is that, in other words, they're dealing with stormwater holistically on that whole site, but they're gonna be separate parcels? Is that a
Well,
problem?
separate parcels for the same owner.
Right.
Same
So,
owners?
yeah.
Okay, so that's not a problem.
So that's
But
not.
Phil, have you looked at 220-8 regarding, like, if they combine this into one lot, the GC2, less restrictive?
No, I hadn't looked at that feature, so that was something we could look into.
I mean, so I guess my observation is that you know, GC2 and GC1 are fairly similar. I think when we first had the presentation from Hoffman's, one of the things that came up was what's the nature of the corridor on God Street per comprehensive plan. Right, I mean, there's the zoning that's there now, and then there's the vision for what it could and should be as an entry corridor to Glens Falls. That notwithstanding, I know that the allowed uses on between those two are fairly similar. I guess my comment was if the change were to be made, and it all became a storage facility, there's actually an opportunity to make it look better than it does now.
Correct.
Because there are just containers sitting there right on the street. There's an opportunity to sort of make it a presentable
Right, and we'll be improving the existing face,
location.
and these will all
with-
match, and we can work with you guys to actually get your vision as well.
Right, I mean, you know, I know that's a really preliminary site plan, but, you know, perhaps there's a way to get a little bit of a more of a buffer on the street, just sort of presenting it
Right,
in
this
a
is
way.
conceptual nature, we can
Right.
join
So
in
for
one building.
For the purposes of this meeting tonight, all we're looking to do is provide an advisory opinion to the common council for the rezoning.
Right, right. I mean,
So if they get a rezone, then they would have to come back to us
Right.
for final site plan review, final architecture.
Any variances, we
Those,
can go
those
through that
things,
process.
any of the stuff that would have to happen, then
So
they
that's
would
next
come back to us.
steps,
That's the
right?
next step. But for our purposes tonight, all we're looking to do is make an advisory opinion to the common council. Now, in the packet that we all got, there is information in there that's already, the common council has already looked at this in one form or another. And I believe that they've gone through this and talked about it as the board, as the common
No,
council.
this is no, they have not. It was referred here before there was a public hearing set.
They've been in front of the common council for referral.
For referral here.
Correct.
Forwarding to the planning board.
Correct.
That's all we've done for an advisory opinion. And then, depending on your advisory opinion, they
Then
then
it would-
set
then it
a
would-
public hearing and a resolution.
Right. So based on that, based on the information that we've heard tonight, how does the board feel? Would you like to advance a positive recommendation to the zoning board or to the common council, that the council should look with favor on the rezoning of the property? I mean, based on the information that we have.
I mean, it's not consistent anyway, so, like you said.
The way I look at this is, and I know a few of you were on the board when we did this with Stewart's down on Warren Street. There was properties that were immediately adjacent to the property that they owned that were zoned residential or multifamily residential, and they needed to be zoned in the commercial zone. And it's very similar to the one that we just did for Stewart's over here on Ridge and Sherman, or Glen.
Sherman and Glen.
Sherman and Glen, where it was, again, multifamily
Multifamily
residential,
residential,
and
changed
we
to GC.
changed to GC1. So I see this as really nothing different as far as us advancing to the common council to say, I don't know that it affects anything dealing with the property other than what the applicant is looking to do at this time. So my personal feeling is, I see no reason why we shouldn't advance a positive recommendation to the board, to the common council, and let them hold the public hearing, and they can decide whether or not they feel it's in the best interest of the vision of the future for the city or not.
Does any of us have any reason why we oppose it? And why it's sitting there empty? Do they want to do something, make it nicer? I don't have anything. I'm just wondering if you all are at this point.
You've got the GC2 between two GC1.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of, I don't know, it seems like it needs to be that way.
Right.
Are you guys willing to work as far as, I mean, when I first saw this thing, the aspect of just seeing the typical metal building storage facility didn't exactly rub me the right way, but by the same token, I've seen some of them to put a brick veneer near the street, and they dress it up. You know, so is it just a metal building that's just stuck out of sight?
It is the gateway to our cities.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and I can say, speaking for the business, consistent with Councilwoman's comments, our intention is to beautify the property.
Right.
Including addition of green space, improving the facade of the existing structure, which is not attractive.
You can't do anything but improve.
Right, there's nowhere to go but up there. And we've already started making efforts in that regard. We've put a new roof on the building, we've put a new coat of paint on the building, we're gonna be doing a stone wainscoting on the front of the building. The containers are gonna be organized in a way that's neater, and, you know, potentially moving some of them to other sites that we have elsewhere. So that's our intention with the building. We view Broad Street is a very well-trafficked area, so we want to make this a friendly property for, you know, commercial use. So that's the intention.
Do you guys own the property that would be, if you're standing on Broad Street looking at the warehouse to the right behind the existing houses? It's like an empty field?
No, that is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Roselle, next door neighbors, this house right there.
It's a big piece.
Yeah, it's beautiful too. They really maintain it well, and we have a friendly relationship with them since we've taken ownership of this property. So they're good people.
Anybody else? Anything, Council?
Sorry, Anthony Massimiano, representing Greylock Storage.
Yeah, but again, that's for what we're looking at. So then I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board hereby submits the following advisory opinion to the Common Council, that the council should look with favor on the application for rezoning of the property located at 83 and 85 Broad Street as presented at the meeting of 6 February 2024. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. You're off to the Common Council for your next round.
Thanks very much.
Absolutely, thank you. Before we call it a night, I would like Mr. Cancelleri to come back up and introduce our new planning and zoning coordinator for the city of Glens Falls. I've had the pleasure of meeting Richard already, but.
Come on. So this is Richard Brown. He's our new part-time planning and zoning coordinator. He comes to us as the zoning officer from Bolton. And he'll be adding some expertise to the office and helping take the load off.
What's Richard's last name? I missed it.
Roman, R-O-M-A-N.
Oh, thank you, I'm sorry.
I don't typically have him come to any of the meetings. He does live out of town, and he is just part-time. I'm not going to have him stay until 6, 7 o'clock at night. But if there is a particularly contentious or or complicated, detailed issue, he is more than willing and available to come to the meetings if we need him to.
Welcome.
And on that same note, I'm pretty sure I sent it out, but there should be this year's schedule for both submission and the meeting deadlines. If I didn't, I know I sent it out to some people. I'll make sure you get that, and it has the new submission dates moving back a full week. So this way we can actually let our new coordinator do the review, so we can actually do some sort of review of the applications before we decide if it has to go on to the agenda or not.
I think that's the biggest concern. For example, on a zoning board issue application, one of the critical questions that need to be answered for a use variance, the applicant marked not applicable.
We actually went over that.
And somehow it got on the agenda, so it's kind of a waste of their time and this board's time if the applications aren't complete.
Thank you.
So as we have gotten things in the past from planning and zoning, and of course we've been through a great deal of change in the department, as you're well aware. If there are items that you need from us or things that would help you to figure out what it is that we need, please let us know. We're more than happy to give you our feedback on the way that we like to see things and the way that we get them. We have several new members of our board as well, so within the last year. So that's, some of them are starting to feel it out a little bit as well. So it'll be a good process to grow with.
My question would be, how are you developing your comprehensive plan, and what are your expectations? Does the board have?
It would be really nice if we were involved in that process. That's our feeling.
I think the Common Council has got a grant to fund
Yes.
the start of the comprehensive plan. I know Warren County has undertaken their start of their planning. They've held some informational meetings. I think that's where the city's at right now. Informational meetings.
So it's at the very preliminary stage with the Common Council. I'm sure as they move forward with things, they're going to set up committees to look at it. The last comprehensive plan was done in the early 2000s, I believe. And once it was developed, it was almost immediately shelved. And it's just sat there. It was never adopted, to the best of my knowledge. So I'm hoping that this time around, at least some of this board will be involved in that, and as well as the zoning board and the common council members and all of those. So if there's anything else that we have for Rich. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anything else for the greater good of the board? No, then I would make a motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting, and we'll be out and running.
Thank you. Phil?
Yes,
Do you have a minute?
I do.
Also, really quick for the board, one of the zoning board members sent me the conference for next year that's held in Saratoga for training with the planning and zoning conference. So I let Chip know that the zoning board was interested in being signed up, so I just figured I'd throw it out to you to see if you were interested in doing that.
I would.
Just from a budgeting standpoint.
Yes, I would think that it would be to the advantage of our board members who haven't been to one of these sessions.
In Saratoga,
It's in Saratoga. We don't have to go all the way to Utica.
So it's February next year, but I just want to make sure, because I'll let you know.
Yeah, I would think that at least providing us the information on what it is, you can forward that out.
Yeah, right now I just have a flyer.
Yeah, that would be
But
fine.
they're having it, I believe right now, or they just had it in Saratoga for this year, yeah, so.
I'm pretty sure it's this past weekend.
Yes, yeah, they just had it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. See you next month.